booktube. I am here with my notes on chapter 18 of House of Leaves. We're now more than halfway through, so yay! So yeah, as you can see, I got my book open here, and then my notes also open on the screen, and we're just going to go through. So we're going to begin, as always, with the epigraph. This mention of ash, and the tree, of course, is on Ash Tree Lane. And we are getting reference here to Thomas Harriot, who went on an expedition with Raleigh to, I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm not American, so is it Roanoke or is it Roanoke? I'm going to go with Roanoke. Yeah, Roanoke, before it disappeared. And this text also tells a story, the text that is referencing right here, is also telling a story of a native man who arose from the grave to tell people about the underworld. And we get a lot of other references to people going into the underworld, such as Eurydice and Orpheus. Down here we get this thing, something otherly, and could that word possibly be motherly, in references to Polyphena. A whole bunch of notes here that I'm just going to move over. The James River here is mentioned. That's actually early colonists tell the story of a man who tried to sell Satan some land. And since Satan proposed a dance contest for the land, and pardon the mark on my finger, I just dyed my hair and I just saw that. Anyways, so the James River, it's used to explain why a spot of the land on the James River is called Dance's Point, and it's clear completely of trees and vegetation, which is interesting since trees are such an important part of House of Leaves. And then we get references to a bunch of like haunted things that happen in Virginia. So we get the curse tree, which is also known as the mother-in-law tree. It's about, basically, the story, very quickly summed up, is about a mother upset that her daughter married this much older man. And the daughter and her husband are actually buried side by side, but a sycamore tree grew in between the two tombs and actually pushed the daughter's tomb away from her husband's and closer to her parents' graves. And so apparently this tree was cut down in the 1970s, but another sycamore tree then grew in its spot again. That's interesting. Then we have Miss Evelyn Bird. She died of a broken heart after her father forbade her from marrying a Catholic man. Apparently she's a friendly ghost. And there's a portrait of her in a blue dress, which I haven't been able to find. I wonder if Evelyn Bird, blue, that's Bird with a Y. Bird, blue dress. Let's see if it pops up. Oh, there we go. I'm guessing this is her here. Open image. There we go. Evelyn Bird and then a nice blue dress. Okay. Then we have Lady Skipwith, Lady Anne Skipwith. She had an argument with her husband while they were out, and she broke the heel of her shoe while stomping off. So, like, shoes and feet are very important in House of Leaves. And she's rumored to actually have committed suicide after having found out that her husband was having an affair with her sister, who was a well-known book collector. So who possibly has the books that Zampano had trouble finding, right? Then we have a mention of Ghost Alley. This is a section of Fort Monroe with lots of ghosts, supposedly haunted by a cat named Greta. Cats are significant in House of Leaves. And Abraham Lincoln, apparently. And apparently also Edgar Allan Poe. Poe is very significant in House of Leaves. He enrolled at the army at Fort Monroe, visited a nearby hotel, and died a month later. Then we have mentions of the Jamestown colony, of course, where more than 80% of the population died in a short amount of time. And then we have this word toehold, again multiple references to feet, and then this idea of the roots of the house, the house as a tree, not just the leaves, but also the roots, right? Down here on footnote 394, we get a reference to a book, L.B. Taylor Jr., The Ghost of Virginia. It's actually a real book. It has a few interesting stories in it. I'll put a link to it down below, but you can find it here. There's Children of Another World on the Bowling Green. But this is what the cover looks like, The Ghosts of Virginia. Oh, and there's Ladybird. There's Ladybird right there. Oh, sorry, the screen's a little off. There's the cover of the book. Okay. So some interesting stories include the refusal room at Carter's Grove, where 2 women rejected proposals from powerful men. And apparently, if you put white carnations in the room, they're ripped to shreds by ghosts. And the Laurel Cove house, where a woman fell in love with a man outside of her marriage, and his voice sometimes appears on tapes of her talking. So I thought a lot of this was interesting, is that we have a lot of ghosts in relation to marriage. So this mother upset that her daughter married an older man. Evelyn Bird dying from heartbreak after being forbidden from married. Lady Skipworth, whose husband had an affair on her. And then the rejection room, or the refusal room, and the Laurel Cove house all have to do with marriage and love and stuff like that. Okay. Page 410. The Lacuna Rare Books room is not real at Hornell College. Lacuna actually means unfilled space or missing portion of a book, so that was funny. And Hornu is an anagram of nowhere. And then we have this reference to Wishart, and then down here further Lawrence. And Lawrence and Wishart is a communist publishing company in the UK. I just thought that was the only connection I could find there. And Sidney Sheldon, we're going to talk more about him when we get to page 417. Harold Robbins is another person mentioned here. It's interesting because part of his book was actually plagiarized by this man named Aker, who used literary appropriation deliberately. It's also known as bricolage. So it's where you take fragments of pre-existing works combined with original writings to create new literary works, which is kind of like what House of Leaves, not the actual book is, but what the idea in House of Leaves is. That makes sense? That where Johnny takes the works of Zampano, who took the works of Navidson, and they're each creating their own individual piece of work on top of it. Okay. Footnote 395. There's possible anagrams for all of this. I just found this on the Mark C. Danilewski forums. They're really hard to navigate. You have to navigate them through Google to get to the links, because a lot of them are broken. But I thought this was interesting. So here are some possible anagrams. Regard what lingual walls are arranged by little efforts, lest usurps blind chance if whim is over. And whim is a significant word. Wild, or it could mean a wild bullet reaches his mouth, its tearing call, awfully preserving danger's final burst forward. Full anagrams that decrypt her vague life harbor rubric walls, faint windows, still legends rise. I just thought it was interesting. Ow. And then we get a reference down here in Johnny's note, footnote 398. I had some good fortune selling my mother's locket. He had said just not even 50 pages prior that he would actually never sell it. But something happened, and he sold it. Right? Over here, he talks about that dream. I remember it changed me. Horrendous weight around my neck. That's the Minotaur dream, and I couldn't find the page number when I was doing notes. But the Minotaur dream, the significant dream there. And then this horrendous weight around my neck. If we go to page 629, just find the page here. We get this letter from Pelafina about how she tried to strangle him as a child. So this horrific weight around his neck. Page 412. Then you and I are going straight to Vegas to Lou Fidel on Red. should be lose it all on red, right? Page 38, way back at the beginning here, we get this gambling term from French. Les jeux sont faits, nous sont fucked, which is a gambling term and Lude dies actually before he can sue Gdanskman and gamble with it. So his die was already cast, and all the bets were off. The game is finished. On page 413, we get this reference to jacarandas, and this is actually a purple flower tree. I wonder if I can find jacaranda tree. Let's see some pictures of them here. Like it's very purple tree. And purple is associated with Pelafina, and then he gets filled with dread. They only unsettled, filling me with dread, and now, strangely enough, a faint sense of fury. So he always, whenever the color purple appears, Johnny has some issues. And then he says, "I'm sorry I didn't get any further than this." And from this page until page 491, his footnotes disappear. There's no more mention of him until page 491, when his story kind of takes over. On page 414 here, we get this word, house manager, which sounds like house manager. Just thought that was interesting. I like interesting words, so I found this word omphalos. Again, I don't speak Greek, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but omphalos, from the Greek meaning navel, as in like your belly button. It's an ancient stone, religious artifact used to denote the center of the world, or a theological proposition that the world was created with signs of history that had not actually occurred. Which I thought was interesting. Then we're going to switch over to page 416. Here, we get a mention of... I'm just going to fix that there, sorry. Bugs me. Page 416, we get a mention of the evening of May 4th, when surrounded by candles, Karen suddenly beams brighter. And these dates are significant, so if we go to page 643, we get this letter from May 5th, but on May 4th, 1989, Pelafina was found dead. So there's this link between Karen and Pelafina. This person, Patricia B. Nesselrode, this is actually also cited on page 407. The previous chapter, Patricia B. Nesselrode. And there's a place in West Virginia called Nesselrode, and there's also a band called Nesselrode, and they had a song called Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I Don't Care Anymore, and I just thought maybe we could listen to it. I'm just gonna... I don't know if the desktop audio is gonna pick up. This is a new computer, but let's try. I can't actually hear that because I don't have audio. I don't have speakers on my computer right now, which is a little frustrating. But yeah, there's a song. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. And then we go down to footnote 408. And we have a reference to this guy Ox. And I thought the only Ox I could find was Phil Ox, who wrote protest songs against the war in Vietnam, and we know Vietnam is very significant in House of Leaves. I said I'd come back to Sydney Sheldon. So we actually have a cliffhanger at the end of this chapter. It literally just like doesn't even end with the period. And the book, that story continues on page 522 over here. Let's see. So Sydney Sweeney actually had this interesting quote about when he was writing about how to make things more interesting by adding cliffhangers. So he says, I try to write my books so the reader can't put them down, he explained in a 1982 interview. I try to construct them so when the reader gets to the end of it, he or she has to read just one more chapter. It's the technique of the old Saturday afternoon serial. Leave the guy hanging on the edge of a cliff at the end of the chapter. And there's a very obvious cliffhanger here. So yeah, that's the end of my notes for chapter 18 of House of Leaves. Let me know what you think about this chapter, and thank you very much for watching.